Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk, where we speak to the top producing agents across the country, successful business people, and everyone that's going to help you take your business to a whole nother level. Really excited for today's episode of Real Talk. I am Brendan Bartic with Brendan Bartic Real Estate Coaching, where our mission is to train the most elite real estate agents and coaches on earth. I'm joined by probably my mentor, my friend, not probably, he is my mentor, he is my friend. He is the person that I look to for all business advice. He's a serial entrepreneur, serial investor. He is the regional director of Keller Williams, Colorado, multiple operating principal of multiple market centers. He was a Hall of Fame team leader. He was an amazing real estate agent, and I believe still even does real estate when he somehow has free time. So I'm so honored to be with the one, the only Lucas Sheridan. Lucas, thank you for joining us.
Oh, absolutely, Brendan. It's an absolute honor.
Excellent. Well, Lucas, today, I've been thinking about this one for a long time about how can I make the most powerful use of this time for our listeners? And what I kept coming back to was what you've shown me is a millionaire mindset. And I know that word's tossed around a lot, millionaire. It should be really multi-millionaire mindset is probably what we'll rename it now as. But you really were a guiding force for me to understand that not only could I be able to be really successful as an agent, but I could be very successful as a multiple business owner. And you really taught me the value of that mindset. And so I'm going to talk about that today. We're going to dive in with you on how to build talented people around you and some of those secret sauces of what you look for. And how do you maintain that when, my gosh, being a regional director in a pandemic and, moving your family from what's that horrible state, Kansas? Yeah, no, just messing with you. Our arch rivals. But so let's start off. If you would take a moment just to talk to us about who you are and where you came from and where you're at today.
Well, and I love that. And Brendan, the truth is if I were to describe the millionaire mindset, it's really live life as big as you possibly can live mindset. And don't buy into the limitations and the constructs that society puts on us of what is acceptable and what is not. If you think about it back at school, you think about the people who are, flunking school and not doing good, they got made fun of. The people who made straight A's were made fun of. What the world tries to do is pull the two polar ends into the average. And everybody it just seems like as a societal norm, there's a lot of people around us that want to pull us back into average and mediocre. So I'm really passionate about this idea. I grew up in abject poverty. We didn't have any money. We lived in a very small house. All the clothes that I wore were hand-me-downs. We lived in Lawrence, Kansas, and the college students there, and we wore hand-me-downs, and we'd go once, maybe every 9 months to Payless shoe store and buy a pair of shoes. And then when my feet were sticking out of them, I'd go buy some more. So the idea of making money was really a concept that was very foreign to me. I had very close family, wonderful parents. I'm still very close to them. And yet money was not something, and I grew up in a very strong faith church background. And so there's a lot of misinterpretations that money was the root of all evil and most misquoted scripture in all the Bible. And
sure.
And so developing a millionaire mindset, because you have to think it before you ever see it. It happens here before it happens there, right?
Absolutely. So and just for that quick moment too about the coming up through the church, and obviously you went on to become an amazing pastor, was the coming up when you were younger, were you taught to not like money? Were you were you constricted a lot by that?
Yeah. In fact, as a pastor, really the overarching prayer was, Lord, let us have enough money, but not enough to ruin us. And the implication there in that statement, that prayer, and that mindset, well-intended. There's no maliciousness in this at all, but it was the idea that money could ruin somebody is such an amazing fallacy, because money can't ruin anybody. All money does is reveal who you already were. So if you were a jerk and you were broke, you'll be a big jerk with a lot of money, right? If you were a
Right.
giver when you were broke, you'll be an amazing giver with a lot of money. And so money just magnifies, money does not create. And so I've had to work through a lot of the way I think about money, the way I see it, the way that I perceive it. And the truth is, Brendan, you and I both own multiple businesses. There are people's lives, dreams, and aspirations that are depending on our capacity to drive business so that they can fund their own lives. And so money is only good for the good that it can do. And money means nothing except for the meaning I attach.
So when did that switch happen?
Yeah.
When did you go, you know what? I'm pulling back the curtains and I'm like, all right, I of course, and again, the belief system, like you said, it's all founded in goodness, right? It's all founded in goodness.
Oh, yeah.
So what was that breakthrough? Because I think that story, I remember, I know it well, and I think about it all the time. So when was that turning point?
Well, and I think the initial parts of that story is even in my last year or so of pastoring, I started reading books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and thinking, what could it be as even a pastor making, $60,000 a year, living, paycheck to paycheck? What could it look like? So I began to investigate. And then I, came out of ministry, went into real estate full time, and I got around a bunch of people at Keller Williams that began to say, well, how big of a life do you really have in your heart? Because, and they spoke my language to me as a former pastor, that the word desire means of the Father. So if it's in there, it didn't come from anywhere. So I remember one though pivotal moment when I was talking to Mo Anderson, who is a former CEO of the company, and she's on the board of Keller Williams right now. And I was doing wealth, interviews because I was like, should I become a millionaire? I'd love to. I have this idea, but I feel guilty about it, and I'm struggling and wrestling. And I remember her asking me in her Oklahoma accent, says, darling, how much money would you like to have? And I said, oh, Mo, the truth is I got 4 kids, wife of now 30, almost 32 years. We live in a 2,300 square foot house. I don't need much, just for me and my family. And she stopped me. She said, that has to be the most self-centered, egotistical, narcissistic thing I have ever heard in my life. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was harsh. She said, why take care of you and just your family when it's possible for you to take care of you and your family and 1,000 other families? And then I realized I'm going to pursue wealth to make a difference in the world. So every day, Brendan, I wake up and say, I alter the course of human history today.
Oh, I love that affirmation, and I know it to be true. I mean, when I heard that story, I was beyond inspired, and then I also just made me start thinking about exactly that. I'm going. How I think both of our big challenges is we work with a lot of people, and we're trying to break them from those shackles. Those $50,000 a year shackles, and I hate to say that. And if you're working a $50,000 a year job right now, there is nothing wrong with that, but there's always the availability and the possibility to do much more, to help more people, and or help your own family, whatever you're into, I guess. But
Well, and Brendan,
that's
I would say there's nothing wrong with $50,000 a year if that's truly your heart's desire.
sure.
The challenge is if you're settling for $50,000 a year, then I think you were created for something much, much more. So let's break out of the mindset that keeps us trapped and start taking action and moving toward our preferred future instead of living in our current reality.
Right. And what you said was what really started to break those chains, obviously, imaginary chains, but was Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Yeah.
right? That book. And I mean, I am a big fan, and I watch everything he does. So talk to me a little bit. What resonated with you the most in that understanding of that concept? For some of our listeners who haven't read it, read it. And for those out there that have read it, what was it that really kind of shifted for you?
Well, it was a couple of things. One, Kiyosaki did a great job of getting my attention at the beginning when he said that his rich dad had him go work and wouldn't pay him. And I got, wow, that's just kind of weird. And he said, because you need to learn how to work for the joy of the work. Don't work for money. Make sure money is always working for you. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second, this is such a foreign concept. I work and every 2 weeks I get a secure paycheck, because really the statement that keeps most of my friends and people I love dearly in totally entrapped and in slavery is go to school, get a job, put your money in the bank, and pay off your mortgage. That is a trap to stay impoverished. So I
Exactly.
began to think to myself, like, wow, how do I need to think? And real honestly, Brendan, it's who do I need to become in order to break out of that? What mindsets and paradigms and what perspectives, glasses do I need to see life through so that I can maximize this one shot I got at life? I could lose money and make it back. If I lose my life and my time, I can't get that back. So how do I maximize this moment? So reading that book helped me realize I've spent all my life working for money, not working for the joy of working. I've
Right.
worked for money, and money's never worked for me. So how do I flip that script? How do I, my friend Ben Kenny, how do I flip the pyramid?
Yep.
Instead of working for money, having money work for me.
Well said. So when that happened, then did you just kind of go, you know what? Pick on the job board real estate. What was that? You were like, yeah, eeny, meeny, miny, real estate. What was
So
how did that connection happen? Because we see a lot of people come from the pastor world to real estate. We see, and what I really think those are, as we know, are teachers, right?
yeah,
You see a lot of people make that transition, especially now. We're seeing a lot of, obviously because of homeschooling, we're seeing a lot of teachers, a lot of people that were formerly pastors and really deep into the church. So what's the draw for real estate?
well, and I made a horrible decision when I got into real estate because I really, honestly, and people think I'm joking. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and watched about 5 episodes of House Hunters on HGTV. And I thought this is an easy way to make money. And I didn't realize that we don't sit in a storefront as realtors and people come to us and say, hey, I'd like to buy 2 of those. It's we have to be in authentic relationships with buyers and sellers that whenever it's ready for them to make the move, we're front and center and have an authentic relationship, not a sales relationship, because the truth is, as real estate professionals, we don't sell houses. Houses sell houses.
Mm.
We sell an experience, a relief of stress, expertise to navigate the litigious world in which we live, right? And so I made a horrible decision because I thought it'd just be easy to show 3 houses in half an hour and make that big realtor check.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, and then I joined a national brand, not KW initially, and I went broke just like that. I won $100,000 in credit card debt, Brendan. It,
Oh,
it's it's almost humorous to be on this call because I remember the days very vividly that I was using credit cards to buy gas and groceries and using lines of credit to pay minimums on credit card. So I
yeah.
essentially my economic plan was to use debt to pay debt.
Mm, mm.
And that economics doesn't work for anybody except for maybe the federal government a little bit, but that's another conversation, right? But
Completely.
yeah,
So so then made that came into real estate. And so again, the other brand, and was what do you think didn't work at the other brand, or was it what, and then I guess how did you end up where you're at now?
yeah. And so for me, it's who you surround yourself matters. And if I'm going to, at the other brand, there was a really strong brand presence, but the talk at the coffee pot was how open houses don't work and how this was a terrible time in real estate. And I would get the response from my compadres at the office like, it's 2008, 2009, and you're getting into real estate now? What's wrong with you? I mean, this is from other realtors. And so after being a few months there, I came to Keller Williams, where for me, the experience was they really taught me how to run a business. They taught me it was about lead acquisition and customer service and excellence of customer service and authentic relationships and being about something bigger than yourself. And I could buy into that. And so for me, it was number one, I needed a tribe around me that would support me toward my goal, not pull me back to average.
Right.
And
Right.
instead of telling me how bad it was, tell me in the midst of bad, where are the biggest opportunities? And I found that in a tribe of people like Keller Williams, where they, you know what, if you really could think it, develop a plan and be willing to work the plan and go get it. And so I began to learn how to build relationships with people thinking about buying and selling, and did pretty good my first year. And then the second year doubled that, and then had opportunities then to go on and run offices and help a lot of agents build
Yeah.
their.
And running offices and all of that. Do you ever think about all of that in 12 years?
Oh my gosh.
Like, doesn't that sound insane?
It's crazy.
Right. That's the craziest part to me is also a lot of people's limiting beliefs that, oh, he's probably doing it 20 years, okay, so he kind of worked his way up the ladder, do. Like if you think about that, going from agent to owner to multiple owner to regional director, and people don't probably understand what that means, out there in the world, but having, 30, 25 to 30-ish offices under your leadership. And again, being one of the most sought after and top people in the entire organization, how do you do that in 12 years? And I'm speaking from me be asking just with the rest of the audience out there is I'm trying to just make it through the day, right? So like, so why are you so special? Right. And and
Well,
and
don't
and
know.
what is that magic sauce that maybe some of us are just going, you are getting more done than we are. How are you doing it?
I think there's two things for me, Brendan, and and I hire coaches. I pay a lot of money to coaches. I love the fact that you have a coaching company. If there's a real estate agent that's on this podcast considering coaching, don't pass go. Don't collect 200. Sign up for coaching, because when given a chance, I will give myself a hall pass from doing the hard work that I need to do every day. So
Sure.
number one, I've hired coaches for the express purpose of saying, be really clear. What do you want? And I would say, well, I want to make more money. That's not clarity. How
Right.
much money in what time period? And so, number one, the thing that I've been blessed with is a lot of coaches from Mike Bastion and Michael Ann Byerly and John Vandergenst right now, and Cherie Lowry and Joe Bogar. And I've got a lot of friends who just, what do you really want? That's not clear enough. And what about that's important to you? And then the second thing that I think that I come more naturally to, that one is I've had to be nurtured into that.
Sure. Sure. That's much
I
more
want
bigger
more money.
thinking.
I
Yeah.
want to sell more real estate. I want
Yeah.
more agents.
Yeah. 50
Oh,
houses a year, 100 houses a year, 200 houses a
there you
year.
go.
Yeah.
But the second thing is, once you say I'm going to sell 100 houses a year, or once you say I'm going to chart out a path in the next 3 to 5 years to have over $10,000 coming to me a month in passive income, then taking this big goal, that's a good goal, and boiling it down to what do I do today? So,
Hmm.
for example, if I'm a real estate professional listening to this and say, how do I amass wealth? And for me, wealth is about passive income that I don't have to work for it. And it's mailbox money, right? And that's rich dad, poor dad. So maybe one thing you could do is every week you're going to analyze a rental property and run it through an ROI calculator and figure out, is the return on investment better with cash only or leveraging 80% of that property? And does it cash flow? And will I be able to get there? Because if you do that once a week, I'm betting you're going to find some amazing deals out there that really help build your family's wealth. So taking something really big. So one was get real clear on what I want and why I want it. And number two, taking something really big and putting it down into like a daily, weekly, hourly activity.
Gotcha. So yeah, so just again, taking it backwards, starting with the big goal. We talk a lot about with people in our coaching programs. We call it your tenure, your swag, your
That's right.
seriously wild, audacious goal, right?
Okay.
So swag. And we just like that acronym because it sounds good and it makes
I know.
sense. And so you did that, right? You took your 10-year goal, and did you at some point, I'm sure a coach probably said to you, hey, let's boil it down to what you have to do 5 years, 3 years, one
Right.
year, 1 month, 1 week. And then, Lucas, here's what you got to do: get out of bed every day and knock this out. Otherwise,
Yeah,
that's never going to happen.
so here's the story, Brendan, is
Please.
as team leader, I'm like thinking, I'd like to be a millionaire doing a team leader job. But the challenge with that was I was only getting paid at $100,000, $150,000 a year. And so it's like, okay, what do you want in 5 years? Well, I'd like to be worth this and have this much money. Well, 3 years, then 1 year. And then it boils down to, okay, every day as a team leader, I wake up and I do one thing. And if I do this one thing, I did my job. I just set 3 appointments with recruits
Mm,
this day, one with
mm.
the producer. Now I'll say that to a group of owners and other kids, and they'll go, "Oh man, you're trying to top down." No, I'm just like, this is the path to $1 million team
Yeah.
leader.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm right here. I'm not that smart,
Right.
but I know how to take a really big thing and boil it down so I can win the day. And I'm
Wow.
finding out the team leaders that follow that pattern are they're on the path of getting what I have been able to get in the last, 5, 6, 7 years.
Which is just not unheard of. I mean, because you're not alone, right? There
Oh,
throughout the organization and other organizations. I think that's what I try to defunk here is that as much as you are magical, you're not magical,
Oh, I'm not.
right?
I'm not that
Like,
smart, Brendan. Let's just be really honest. I graduated from high school, Lawrence High School, with a 2.17 GPA.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I just got out. But
yeah.
here's the thing: is if anyone listening to this could take their swag, their seriously
Wild, audacious goal.
quality goal, and boil it down to 20 calls every single day as a real estate professional, and I'm there within the next 3 to 5 years, then go. And then
Then
what
go.
they'll have to do, though, this is what happens for me. My need, and I think this happens with like our sphere with other operating principals and owners of offices, is our need to not be bored sometimes gets in the way of our desire to master.
Yep. Yep.
So they'll
Because
say, I
what?
don't want to
Because
set 3 appointments a day. We'll do it a different way, which is fine if you get the same result, right?
well, because success is very boring and repetitious.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what I try. People are like, we talk about it all the time. They're like, I just want to be creative, creative, creative. And I go, then this might not be the right profession for you, or it is, but you can't get to that maximum amount of creativity until you've been able to be repetitive. And I always give the analogy of that rep, because like you just said, 20 contacts a day or 40 or whatever the number is. I always say, give this analogy of just if you were going to be a famous guitar player, you've got to play the same song 50 cajillion times before you perfect it and before you feel that it's like in your soul. And people don't understand that that amount of repetition practice sucks. It's not fun. The role plays, you think any band out there is like, boy, I can't wait for band practice. No, they want to go perform. But the best bands are the ones that nailed it in the practice, right? And really locked that down. So taking it from the 10-year to that to the daily, then once you got into, because it sounds like you were a leader in the church, obviously, then you got into real estate, then why not just stay as a real estate agent? What was the shift there?
And so for me, I like the ideas of I like the idea and concept of what we call horizontal income, where it comes to me whether I work or not, where I could do
Mm,
something once. And the idea of being able to purchase a real estate office or even work myself into equity positions in a real estate office is like, wow, I could work really hard and earn some equity. And then once I leave, that equity keeps on paying me in reward for the work I did. So that's where it began to shift for me. And I love helping people. I love teaching. And with your creativity thing, it's interesting. I took 9 years of piano lessons. And I remember when I stopped. It was when I
sure.
was 16 years old, and there was a 7-year-old kid that beat me at the state of Kansas piano competition by a tenth of a point. I'm like, I'm out, right? But there's a big difference between me, who stopped at 16, and my wife, who has traveled internationally as a concert pianist. And the difference is she spent hours in a room by herself doing the exact same thing over and over and over again. Now, here's what's fun. If I hear a song on the radio, I'll say, hey, Bobby, could you play this? And she'll sit down and she can play it.
Wow.
She right off the top of her head. Now, here's the thing. She learned models, so now she could be supremely creative. And if we're sitting in a band, which we've both played in bands before, and we go off the page, boy, I follow her lead because I'll play the guitar with her, and she just create beyond because she understands the model so well. She could create massively.
But she, just to make sure I'm hearing this correct, she didn't do that her first year, correct?
Oh, she started,
Right.
she was
Right.
7 years old and went to college on a piano major. And she spent hours and hours and hours of boring, mind-numbing practice in a room by herself, in a practice room.
To dedicate towards mastery, right?
That's called,
Mastery. Yeah,
yeah.
to dedicate towards mastery. So when you're talking to agents, business owners, and we're talking about that mindset, what happens when it dips? Right? You have that one bad day. I know you've told me some stories. Somebody sues you, somebody close to you, quits, these punch in the faces.
Yeah.
How do you not wake up and just go, I'm just going to go back to being a pastor? Not that that's a bad thing, right? But you know what? Pastor life was, how do you keep from that
I'm
punch in
going
the
to be the
face?
best buyer's agent on the Bartic that you've ever seen.
Sure, sure.
But
Right.
yeah, you know what? This is my thought is, in the absence of a compelling vision, we will go backwards. And if I'm not clear about my preferred future, I will always settle for what I can get easily and naturally in my current state of affairs. whenever I bump into a setback, Brendan, and this actually, that question is this week is the timing is perfect because I bumped into a couple of those just this week. It's like, oh my God,
Sure. Oh,
what am I doing? And why am I doing this? And actually, when I bump into that question, it becomes a trigger in my mind. Yeah, why are you doing this? And in that moment of wanting to quit and frustration and overwhelm and just can't believe what's happening, I had better have a clear, compelling vision of the future, or else I will not pull myself through. I will always go back to what I'm natural at, because as a human being, I want to be good at what I'm doing. I don't want to step into something that I'm not good at. That isn't how millionaires are created. We have to constantly have the courage, step in something you're not good at, know you're going to fall on your face, scrape your knees, do something poorly, and just get better, instead of staying at the level of like, I can master this spreadsheet, I can master this PowerPoint, I can master this presentation. Well, that got me to where I'm at, but where I'm going is so compelling, I can't stay put.
right. And we always give the analogy of the thermostat, right? You turn it up to 85, people get real hot, real uncomfortable until 85 becomes normal,
That's
right?
right.
Then you're like, can I crank it up to 95? And then you're like, it's not so hot anymore at 85. But people love living at 72 degrees.
Okay.
And I feel like for both of us, that's one of those biggest challenges, is just, you don't have to. It's okay to fail. It's okay to look stupid. You are my, by far favorite public speaker. And anytime we ever get a chance, hopefully when COVID ends, that someone can come see you live, it inspired me. I remember the first time I taught a class in front of a market center, and I was terrified. I was like, I'm talking too fast. I look, and then watching you, and I was like, well, he probably, even though you came from a pastor background and got up in front of people, I'm sure that first time you delivered a sermon, you probably weren't as good as you are now, and you were okay with that. So how is it? Because if you're not magical, which you are, but if you're not this, how do I get started? How do I go from limited mindset to abundance mindset? Is it books? Is it who I'm surrounded by? What do you think is that special sauce?
Yeah, I think it's setting an achievable goal. So I'm good friends with Ben Kinney, and we were just talking the other day. He says, okay, so become a thousandaire. Don't
Mm,
worry about a millionaire, become a thousandaire. You know what? If you're like your health is out of whack, don't lose 50 pounds, just lose one,
mm,
and then go celebrate the credit of it, and then go lose one more. And so for me, it's wherever you're at, be there, embrace it, and get better. So what's going to help you get better? And so like you and I, we're prolific readers. I like to read. I like to listen to podcasts. I like to listen to information that helps build me up. I love going to seminars that stretch me and make me feel a little bit more uncomfortable than before. I'm constantly wanting to get better. I believe um, I believe, like Michael Singer wrote a book called The Untethered Soul, and then the Surrender Experiment. And in the Surrender Experiment, he made this thing that were in his paradigm and his philosophy that is very much an Eastern religion philosophy. He said, life is going to show up every day to teach me what I must learn if I'll surrender to
mm.
it. So the crisis that I felt this week, or the tension I felt this week, once I caught myself getting all tense, like, whoa, wait a second, breathe and surrender to it. And don't make the situation wrong, the person wrong. Say, where do I get better? How do I improve? How do I glean wisdom from the situation, even though it really is hard? So I would tell people that are listening and that are following your coaching program is one is wake up every day, letting life be your teacher and get better. Number two, make sure it's very incremental. Good grief. I go to the gym every morning about 5 o'clock in the morning, right? And January 1st, I know what's going to happen. Very well-intended people are going to flood there, and within a week they're going to be gone. And sometimes it's because they're wanting to lose 50 pounds and get abs of steel, and they don't see it take place in a week. So why don't we just say, I'm going to work out 4 times a week, and then find somebody to hold you accountable for that one small thing. Don't worry about the quality of the workout initially. Just get yourself out of bed 30 minutes earlier, or whatever it is. Whatever that incremental, and then enroll your world around you to hold you accountable. And Brendan, I'm going to say this about coaching, and this is why what you do is brilliant. In achievement, we don't need a buddy,
Mm.
need a coach. A buddy's going to say, you know what, Brendan, you'll get it next time. Don't worry about it. You slept in today. You know what, you're a good man. And
Yeah, let's go get a Starbucks.
let's
Yeah.
go get Starbucks. And it becomes a buddy.
Hmm.
Accountability partners never work for me. I have to pay $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month because that check, that dollar going out is going to create enough pain for me. I'm going to show up at my coaching call and get $3,000 of value out of it, and I'm going to go take action because I'm paying you to take. So I would say break it to small thing and then find as fast as you can somebody that really will be your coach and your mentor.
Yeah, no, it's accountability is absolutely everything. And what I heard a lot in there too is just habit stacking, right?
Right.
You know, when we, the book Atomic Habits is
Love
start small, then stack another little habit on. The first habit might just be getting up at 6:30. I think when you say 5, people have a heart attack. Me and you both love getting up early, but some people have a heart attack hearing that. So just a little bit a day can make that change. So Lucas, with this empire that you have built, can you take me through one of the things that I have personally learned the most from you is finding talent, and I'm still light years behind where you are, nurturing that talent. Talk to me a little bit about your journey of, I'd love to hear your first hire in real estate and then what that was like and what you've learned and what do you do now? Because one of the biggest things I coach to for all of my elite one-on-one clients, these are people that are doing, selling 75 plus homes a year, right? These are good business people. The conversation we have every day is people,
Yep.
leverage, people, and the amazing world that comes along with that daily challenge of emotion. So what was that like the first hire? And then what have you learned along the way and where are you at now?
Yeah, so the first hire was terrible. So thanks for going right to that. I've made three extremely terrible hires in my life. And every single time it's because, well, you know what? I'll just go with my gut. I know people, I read people for a living, and this person's amazing, and I'm going to give them a chance. And here's the thing is when I do that, as I do that, and I have done that, it always ends up I serve less people, I hurt people, things don't go well, balls get dropped, files get dropped, things get broken. And fortunately in business you can come back, you can bounce back from those mistakes. It's just in our world, Brendan, real estate is amazingly simple. It's the people that are a challenge. So why would I ever invite crazy into my organization?
But it happens, right? It
Well,
happens.
because
And yeah.
we're high urgent people. We want results now. And because we know how to read people and we're intelligent. So number one, I have forced myself every hire to slow it down to where I'm like literally in pain, and I follow a very specific process and cadence, and I get other eyes on it. I do references. I go 3 deep on my references. I thoroughly want to vet this person, not just to find out if they're crazy or not, that which is helpful not to invite crazy into your organization,
Yeah.
but to make
Yeah.
sure that they're in alignment with me, because I'm very assertive. I'm very intense. And if I'm hiring somebody that's going to rub wrong or trigger issues for, I'm not serving them, nor am I serving me. So we've got to be a good match. And so I've slowed that down. And then, Brendan, I heard my team leader, Casey Keith, say this last week, and it was just 2 weeks ago. It was really powerful. I took my team up to Vail to pour into them in a leadership.
Yeah.
And he said, my aha was, I could relate to people's goals better than I could relate to people. And boy, that hit me. It's like, I'm so goal driven that I'm learning as a leader, I have to be with Brendan Bartic. I have to be with my key people and be with them as human beings and check on how things are going. I had one of my team leaders have, contract COVID a few weeks ago. And so,
Sure.
well, we showed up as human beings then, because that's the most important. So I'm learning how to do that and learning how to develop leaders. I do really think that there's a lot of truth in what Gary says, that leaders are people who help others think in the way they need to think so they can get what they want when they want it. We have to help people get what they want. And also this podcast is a step in that direction, right? Anybody listening, I'm hoping they get something that, okay, I could go get what I want at a better level now, right?
Exactly right. And some things that were in there that are Kellerisms in there. So one of the things I heard, and just I want to make sure people understand this, is you said a phrase 3 deep in references. What does that mean? I know what it means, but I would love for you to explain it, because this is one of the things that people blaze over and don't do 90% of hires. I think we'd both agree. I've been guilty of it where I'm like, it's fine. What does that mean?
And so for me, 3 deep is I know if I ask you and I'm getting ready to hire you for your references, you're going to give me your three closest buddies that you're going to say, hey, he's going to be calling you. Please speak nicely to me, right?
Yep.
Well, I'm also going to ask you for permission when you give me those three people. Is it okay if I ask them to give me three people, other people? And what I'm going to do is, and then that second layer of people that I'm calling, I'm saying, hey, Brendan's giving me permission. Who else should I be talking to about Brendan? That's three deep. And by that time, I'm hearing some, oh, yeah, I had this bad. Now, actually, I look for at least one or two references to give me that. Oh my gosh, don't hire him because blah, blah, blah. Because I want to go into every hire with my eyes wide open. And I want you to do the same. And so I thoroughly vet the references, and it's
And
the most
and and
painful thing in the world.
I was just going to say, and it takes a lot of time, right? It takes a lot of time, but it works. I always tell people this story. We were looking at hiring the team leader or the person to run our office here, and we were very close. We had a great candidate, had gone through all the earlier parts, and I go, I'm doing this. I'm going 9 references, three deep. I just can't, look at it as the nine. So sure enough, first round, awesome. Second round, oh, awesome. Third round, people were like, hey, it is not a good idea. I can tell you right now, here's some stories that I know. Don't take my word. And I remember being stopped in my tracks because I was like this close to not only hiring that person, but moving them across the country, right? Right. And like you just said, probably ruining their life because the fit wouldn't have been there and not that they were a bad person, they were just maybe not the right person for that role or our role. People were like, she's a great this, but I don't think she'd be good in that role because of this. And that really shocked me. So I just wanted to clarify for everybody. So that's three deep in references is going 333 and making sure that you know that. Then another piece about that is, so where do you start? If I'm listening right now and I want to hire my first assistant or the general manager to run my company,
Yeah.
what's your process of that first phase?
Yeah, and so for at Keller Williams, we have a whole process called career visioning. However, if anybody doesn't have access to that, I do a behavioral assessment because that's the easiest conversation, and then verify. Don't just the mistake people make with assessments is they read them and say, "Oh, this guy's a high D," or "This person's an ENTJ," or
Yeah.
whatever the caliber.
They're a high S or a high C, so they should be a good transaction
That's
manager.
right.
I
So
hear that
what I'm
all the
trying
time.
to actually verify that because it's the conversation that I'm having about your personality that's more important than the assessment. And then I'm wanting to find out how do you think about things. So I'm going to have some interview questions about that. Then honestly, the two interviews I like to use the most is okay, starting Brendan at your last education. What did you do career wise? And I will ask you questions. And I will literally put on, you've actually experienced this with me.
Oh yeah.
I'll put it on a flip chart so you can see what I'm writing.
Yep.
Say, what were your highs? What were your lows? What did you learn? How much did you earn in that time period? And I will go through from your last schooling experience to right now. And then we'll say, look at your autobiography. Isn't that amazing?
Yep.
Because everybody's history leaves clues to what their destiny is going to be. And so
Yep.
if I see somebody who's constantly doing this and constantly doing this and constantly doing this at every endeavor, wow, that's pretty important, And then the final interview I do is, okay, let's fast forward 3 years. What's perfect when we talk about your money? What's perfect? And I will dig into those kind of interviews because I want to know how big a life do you want to live? Because getting into my world, I only want people who want to live like ridiculously big lives and are willing to put action behind that.
Yeah, and that is the entire process. And what I find, from learning that process from you, me having to stumble along through it as well, is what we do a lot of times is we try to make them the right fit. Right.
Oh,
And you taught me this. You go, Brendan, just shut up and listen to them. And I remember being that because you'll be talking and I'll be like, oh, so yeah, so you are great at sales, right? You just kind of start. And it's so hard for us because once we spent the time to think that a good candidate came into our path, we want to make it work. Just like we want to make some relationships that we might not make sense to work. Same thing we want to make, we try to force it. Right. And then before you know it, because you don't want to go through the pain of doing this process again,
right.
you make a decision that you wish you wouldn't have done because it's
Right.
not fair to either one of you. So yeah, I think that's
All
beyond the most valuable. And then the last part of that, so now you've got a great hire. What happens? during the first 90 days? What is your process of, making sure they're okay and you're okay?
Yeah. And I think this is where a lot of people go wrong is we're going to be really clear with measurables on what expectations are right at the very beginning. So when you come in here are the KPIs, here are the key performance indicators, here are the lead measures I'm going to be measuring you by every day. And when you first start, you're going to feel like I am managing all over you. And honestly, I don't like doing that. And I know you don't like doing that, but I'm more committed to your success than I am to my comfort or yours. And as you show me that you could do the activities and you could start to do skills, my control of you is going to go down, your autonomy is going to go up. And pretty soon, all I'm doing is holding you accountable to what you said you were going to do for your reasons that you say I was going to. Make sure those first days, you have the skills, you have the tools, you have everything that you need, and I'm going to manage it. But then as we go, it better be to where you do this. If after 90 days, you can't fly and you can't ride the bicycle on your own, I made a mistake, you made a mistake, let's just call it good, and I'll go find another hire that wants to do this.
I love that. I love that. And one of the things that you had shared with me was, here's how you win with me.
Yeah.
Can you kind of, let's just role play that. So I'm sitting across from you, you're about to hire me, or you've already hired me. And I'm like, great, Lucas, I can't wait to start.
Awesome. And so what I have is the expectation conversation. And there are 3 conversations I'll have is, hey, Brendan, how do I win with you? And I will sit there and just listen. And I'll write and write and write. And I say, well, this is how you win with me. And I'll tell you the 7 or 8 things that are on my bullet point list. And then I'll flip around and say, does this look like how we win with each other? Awesome. I'm going to type that up and I'm going to have us both sign off on it because this is our relationship. And then the second conversation is, how do I lose with you? Because this is how you lose with me. And then we'll turn around and say, is this correct? And we can revisit this, but is this correct as we see it right now? Awesome. Type it up, sign off on it. This is our relationship. We put it into a binder. And the third one was, if I ever need to approach you with a very difficult conversation, how do you want me to approach you? Because this is how I want you to approach me. Now I have a clear, defined in your words, how I approach you, how I win with you, how I lose with you. And we both signed off on it.
Wow.
And if we ever come to a conflict, Brendan, it's like, do we need to reset our relationship? Because this isn't what we agreed upon. Right.
That is worth the price of admission. And there's so much nuance in that. And obviously every time I think about that, some people might do the first part, right? So here's how you win with me.
That's a
It might not. Yeah, that's the good one, right? But it's that, here's how you lose with me. And that's the one where I loved, where you're so direct and you're going, look, you're late 1 minute, you lose with me. Yeah. You are not honest with me, you lose with me. So anytime you have a problem, you need to come to me and you need to be straight up about it. If I find out that you were, holding back or lying, that's a lose for me. And then let them go, of course, or let them go first. But I just thought that of all the things, as setting the standard and the expectation from the beginning is so freaking powerful that that should be worth the price of listening to this entire session. I mean, by far and away.
Yeah, we have to be self-aware, very self-aware of how we operate. I'm never going to be a patient man. I've worked on it for years. I'm 53 years old. That ship sailed. There's times I can artificially suspend that impatience and high sense of urgency, but I know that about me. So if you're going to come to work with me, this is how you lose with me, because I know myself, right?
And to think about that in closing, because we want to respect your time and we could talk to you forever. I mean, 53, you started this journey at 50, right?
40,
this,
40.
Or 40, this real estate journey at 40. Yeah, that's why I'm in real estate, no math, right? So 40. So just, for those people listening out there, it's too late to leave my previous job. It's too late for me. I've been in this business for this long. Look what you can do in just 10, 12, 13 years. It's absolutely phenomenal. So Lucas, what's that?
And I'm slow, so
yeah,
I could do a lot faster.
No, you make us all want to do more. So I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate you spending the time with us. I know all of our listeners are going to really appreciate this. If somebody wanted to connect with you, be a part of your world, maybe interview with you for any of the number of opportunities you have, what's the best way for us to connect with you?
Sure. You can either find me on Facebook. I have both a personal page that I maxed out Facebook's limit, but there's also a public figure page that they can go like that page. They can contact me that way, or they can email me at lucas.s@kw.com. I'd love to talk to anybody and help anybody that I can.
I love it. I love it. A servant to the people. So again, thank you so much. As always, everyone, thank you for listening to Real Talk. I am Brendan Bartic. And as always, I wish you great success.